Eric White here. Today I am going to discuss how you can group content controls in WordprocessingML to create forms. Forms are one of the most interesting scenarios around WordprocessingML. You can create a document that has a bunch of fields in the document, and it has a bunch of other content in that document that explains how to fill out those fields. You can send one of these documents to an end user, and the end user can fill out the document, fill out all those fields, and return the document to you, and you can get the data out of all of those fields. There are a number of different ways to go about doing that. Today I'm going to discuss the approach of grouping content controls to create a form. There are some advantages to using this approach versus other approaches. I'll show you what those are. Here we have a template document. It's a pretty simple little letter that we're going to send to a user. The letter contains some fields here, a company field, a name field, and an age field. Further, there is this other field. What do you want to achieve out of this seminar? This is a document that we can send to a user, and the user can fill out all of those fields and return it to us. These content controls here are bound to custom XML parts. Let me make that clear what that means. First of all, I'm going to turn on design mode so that we can see the content controls more easily. So here we have the company content control, the name content control, age content control, and this my goal content control. I'll close this document, and I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'll change this to Eric White form. Let's go into the document, and here the company name is Adventure Works, and my name is Eric White. My age, I'm still 29. I've been 29 for a really long time. Oh, actually, I'm much older than that. And what do we want to achieve out of this seminar? And you'll see I entered in some text into that final content control, and in fact I misspelled one of the words, and you can see that the word is indicated to be misspelled. That's going to be important to us in just a bit. Let's go take a look at what it means for these to be data bound. I'll save this document, close it. I'll open up the document in the OpenXML Package Editor Power Tool for Visual Studio. I'll open up the custom XML part, and here we can see the data that we entered into that form. I have a company element, a name element, an age element, and a my goal element. These correspond, of course, to those fields. We can see the misspelled word. And if we look inside the main document part, here we have a content control, and we have a data binding element, and this data binding element has an XPath expression that points to that element in the custom XML part. It also has this store item ID. This is a GUID, and you'll notice here it starts with 37D795. And if I come over here and I look at this item 1, this is my custom XML. It has a relationship to item 1 props. And if I open item 1 props, then I see that this item 1 props has an item ID of 37DC95 and so on. So this is how it creates a correlation between the content control and the custom XML. You first of all have the GUID that creates the relationship between that content control and the particular custom XML part. And then you have an XPath expression that once you have that particular custom XML part, it creates the relationship between the element that you want to bind that content control to. So there we have a bound content control. It is bound to custom XML. We can fill out the form and we can see the results of filling out the form in that custom XML part. So there's a problem with this. Here is that document. I can turn on design mode so that we can see our content controls more easily. This is the form that we sent to our user, but the problem is the user can come in here and they can change things here. They can change the text of the form that isn't part of what they're supposed to fill out. And what we can do here is we can restrict editing. Before I turn on restrict editing, I need to turn off design mode. I'll come over here, click restrict editing, and I'm going to check this box here that says allow only this type of editing in the document, and I am going to select filling in forms. And I'm going to start enforcing protection. And this particular example, the issue of passwords, that's really irrelevant to us. So we'll just click OK and leave no password in there. And now I have a form that I can type in text here. The company name is AdventureWorks, but I can't set the insertion point here and type in text. I can only type in text in my forms. Well, that's pretty cool. But we've got a little bit of a problem here. If you look down here, our content control that is misspelled, this control is misspelled. We lost the squiggly here. And let's say that this was a field that was made for letting the user enter in an essay or something. We may want to enable spell check in this content control. Well, there's another way to do this. I'm going to go back to this restrict editing and I'm going to tell it to stop protection. Turn off everything there. I'm not going to restrict editing that way. And once again, we get the spell check indication here. And just so I can come back to a known point, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to save this document. I'll close the document and I'm going to copy this document, edit the copied document. I'll show you what I can do. I can select the entire document and I can go to Developer tab and I can tell it that I want to group everything in this document. So now, once again, I'm in the situation where I cannot type anything in where I'm not supposed to type in. I'm trying to type here. I can't insert anything there, but I can come into this content control and type in data into that content control, type in text there. So this is the behavior we want, and look down here, we in fact have spell check turned on again. This is the way we want to do this. So the question is, how, after generating a document that has data-bound content controls, can we achieve this effect programmatically? I'm going to close this and not save it again this time. At this point in time, these two documents are the same. I'm going to go into this one. I'm going to select everything, go to the Developer tab, and group everything and save it. So this way we can just do a diff and see exactly what's different between those two documents. And that will teach us what we need to know in order to group content controls. So I'm going to use the OpenXML SDK productivity tool. I'll compare files. The first file is Eric White form. That's the before file. And the after one is Eric White form -copy. Let's compare those. I could show you that there are changes in the app and core and settings, but we don't really care about those. What we really care about, you can just trust me, there's nothing in those parts that change that are different. It's just things that indicate that we edited the document and it gives it a different RSID and so on. This is the part that has the difference, and if we look in here, what we can see here is in the before here are our content controls. Here's the Adventure Works content control, so on. And in the after, what we have is we have another content control that surrounds everything in the first document. It's a content control that surrounds the entire document. And this content control, it has its ID, and it has this interesting element here, this w:"lock" element with the value of content locked. And it's got a placeholder, that doesn't really matter. And it's got this other interesting element that says w:"group. And this is the element that gives us our interesting behavior. Other than that, everything else in the other document is as it was. So now let's go in and manually make a document be locked using this grouping method. I'll close the productivity tool. Before I go through the process of grouping these content controls, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into this one. This is the one where they're grouped, and I'm going to grab a bit of XML from this. I'll format the XML, and what I'm going to grab here is this XML, this content control here. It's got an ID, whatever it is, that's fine. It's got a lock, placeholder, and group. And here we're selecting up through the SDT content element. And then everything else in this document is all the same, except that at the end, we're going to have a close element for SDT content. And also we're going to have a close element for w:"SDT. I'm going to paste that bit of content into a text editor so I can get back to it easily. And I can close this document, don't need it. Now this Eric White form, this is the one where they are not grouped, and I want to group them. So if I want to group them, the operation is pretty simple. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy and paste it, and I'm going to rename it as manually grouped. Now I'm going to drag manually grouped onto Visual Studio and edit it in the OpenXML package editor power tool for Visual Studio 2010. I'll edit the main document part, format the XML, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste this bit of XML right here, right before the very first paragraph. It's not formatted nicely, but we'll take care of that in just a bit. Now I'm going to go to the end of the document, and I'll put it before the section properties, and I'm going to put a close. I'm going to close the w:"SDT content, and now I'm going to close the w:"SDT. And I'll format the XML just to make it all nice and clean. So now we have simply surrounded the entire contents of this document with this other content control, and it's got this lock element and it's got this group element. So let's save it, and let's open this manually grouped document in Word. And you can see we have the exact same behavior we had before. I'm typing here, but I can't type. But if I come down here, I can type in AdventureWorks Ltd, change my name, whatever, and we have the spell checking working properly in this multi-line rich text content control. Well, that's all fine and good. So now let's write a bit of code using the OpenXML SDK where we can hand it an OpenXML document that has content controls in it that are bound to custom XML, and we're going to group together all of those content controls and do it in such a way that the entire document is locked for editing except for the content in our content controls. So now I'm going to start a new Visual Studio solution for OpenXML and add the OpenXML assembly and so on. And I'm going to put this on super fast forward so you don't have to suffer through it, as you've probably done this operation quite a few times. If you haven't, then there's lots of content out there on the web that shows how to do all of this. Okay, now I've set up my entire project. I have my references to the OpenXML SDK, and I also have the reference to the Windows base assembly, and I've added the using statements that I need to have in order to get to the various things I need to get to. I'm going to do something where I'm going to copy Eric White form, and I'm going to copy it to another file and call it programmatically grouped. And that way I'm not changing my original, I'm just altering a copy. So there I have written a bit of code to look for my programmatically grouped .docx document, and if it exists, I delete it. And then I copy the original to that one. There, I've opened it for read-write. I am going to use the productivity tool to write a bit of my code for me. So the way I'm going to do that, I'm going to take this manually grouped document, and I am going to, first of all, edit it in the OpenXML package editor power tool. I'm going to come in here and open up the main document part, and I'm going to delete everything inside of the SDT content. I want just like that. I want to get something that will give me the code to create that in as easy a form as possible. So there, I close it, open up the productivity tool, drag this manually grouped onto there. And here's the one that we want. And now I'm going to tell it I want reflect code. And here's the code that I want. So this is the code to generate that SDT block. I'm going to make this a static method to make it easier to call. I'll generate that. And then I am going to add everything in the other main document body into my SDT block. I'm going to add everything into that SDT content element. So let's get the content element. I'm also going to get the body element of our main document part. I'm going to create a new body element. And now I can replace, the new one is new body, and the old one is body. And that's all I needed to do. I also need I forgot I needed to clone that fellow before I add it. Okay, now let's run it. And it ran that quickly. Well, first of all, there is our programmatically grouped document right here we just created. Let's go in and look at it. I'm going to try typing here. I certainly cannot type. I can come in here and I can type. I can tab from field to field. And I have spell checking working in this content control right here. Let's close that and not save it. Let's look at this document in the OpenXML SDK package editor power tool. And here is the document. You can see we have the body element right here. And below that, we have our content control that has this lock element and it has this group element. Those are the interesting things that we needed. And then also we have in this SDT content element, we have all of our child content of the first document. And this created exactly what we wanted to create. We created a document where all of the content controls were grouped in the document that we modified. You can find the listing to that little program right below the video in this blog post introducing the video. Thanks for watching this video. Come back often to openxmldeveloper.org and follow me on Twitter at EricWhiteDev and follow OpenXML on Twitter at OpenXMLDev. See you later.